Do ERP integrators and ERP vendors want you to fail? Well, their interests certainly aren't aligned with yours. That's what I want to talk about today. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney for over 20 years. I've drafted and negotiated a variety of ERP-related contracts and have litigated failed software projects in courts across the country. The ERP industry is riddled with stories of ERP failures and digital transformations that went sideways. And the reality is that your software vendors and integrators make more money when that happens. Now, let's frame the issue. I think it goes without saying that incentives drive behavior, and the vast majority of these projects, certainly on an integration side, are going to be done on a time and materials basis, meaning that the more time that they spend dealing with projects and dealing with issues related to problems associated with the configuration of that software, the more money they are going to make. Now, I am not suggesting that your vendors are sitting around plotting how to make this project unsuccessful. I think that's unlikely, but I think the reality is that they are not incented to be super efficient and to lead with your business processes first. I think they are going to address your implementation the way they have addressed every other implementation, and that's just the way it is. You look at something like the sales cycle, and I think that is instructive for a variety of reasons. And it goes, again, without saying that salespeople are incented to sell software and to sell services, and the way they do that is by minimizing the complexity of these projects. They sell the sizzle, they don't sell the steak. They are not telling you that data migration is critical. They are not telling you about all the gaps in functionality that might exist. They are, selling the upside of quick implementations. They are going to tell you that they've got methods and implementation methodologies that are going to mitigate risk and get you live as soon as possible. And the problem with that is that it really gives you unrealistic expectations about how difficult this project is going to be. And that in and of itself, I think, sets you up for failure. If you had some real insight into the complexity and to how long this thing was going to take, the manpower that you had to devote to the project, you might treat it a little bit differently than you otherwise would when your vendors are telling you, don't worry about it, and this is easy, we've done it many times, we're going to get you up and running. In there is an inherent creation of an unreasonable expectation that almost guarantees that you're behind the eight ball before you even have begun. The second thing that I want to look at is really the contracts and how those are structured. The reality is that those contracts are one-sided, unreasonable, and every sentence, every comma in there is drafted towards the benefit of that vendor to your detriment. And while that may sound dramatic, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And you look at these agreements, they tend to shift all of the burden and all the responsibility for the success of that project to you. And you've got to look at language in, say, an SOW that places the obligation for the success of that project solely on your shoulders. You've got to ask yourself, well, why is that language in there? What am I paying these people for, right? I mean, you're engaging an expert for a reason, and the contract should say that. The overarching point here is that these contracts are not drafted toward your benefit. They shift the responsibility and the burden of the project to you, gives them the ability to argue that they can wash their hands of any failures because their inability to do something was really contingent on your obligation to provide something to them per the contract, and you failed to do it. And that kind of language is incredibly problematic. And that really does carry over to the implementation itself. And I think once that implementation project has started, they are the integrators, the vendors, they're really going to be focused on how do we get you to go live as quickly as possible. They're not thinking about addressing gaps in functionality. They're not thinking about meeting necessarily your business requirements or addressing your business processes. I mean, if they can get away with it, they're going to give you a minimally viable product and then deal with any kinds of functionality gaps that might exist after the go live date. So I think they're not necessarily going to be incented in that implementation to meet your needs. And we see it all the time. I mean, you see vendors that will utilize a project as a training ground for inexperienced consultants that are brand new. They are rolling consultants in and out of the project with very little transfer of knowledge of what is going on with that project. All of this sets you up for failure in a variety of ways. We also see aspects of these projects where vendors are rushing through testing, they're compressing timelines, They're just not that concerned about these things. And when, something goes off the rail, it's not necessarily a problem for them. It's a problem for you, but they get to bill more money to address those problems. And I think there's a fundamental misalignment between their objectives and your objectives. Do they want you to fail? No, but I certainly think they don't make it easy for you. I think they put up unnecessary hurdles. You've got to understand that from the very beginning, the cards are very much stacked against you. And I think you want to engage experts, whether it's attorneys, software selection consultants. You want to have, an independent third party technology agnostic consulting firm, in the mix somewhere to be able to keep that vendor, grounded and to hold their feet to the fire. I think if you do all of those things, you really are going to set yourself in the right direction, give yourself a dog in the fight if there is an issue, and hopefully you're in a position to be able to, pull that contract out of a drawer because it's been negotiated properly, and you can point to the resolution that has been mutually agreed upon to address whatever failure that is, and hopefully it's done efficiently and it doesn't cost you a lot of money to get there. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about in this video, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you and point you in the right direction.